Today on Bakes and Blenders, we're going to be making a really fun and unique cake. It's a chocolate rosemary cake covered in an intense chocolate buttercream with a shiny chocolate rosemary ganache drip, and on top we're going to add a wreath of fresh rosemary and the cutest ceramic candle holder you've ever seen. So if that sounds exciting, let's just go ahead and dive in. First thing we're going to do is make our intense chocolate buttercream. Start by adding your powdered sugar, your cocoa powder, and your pasteurized egg whites. Those are the ones from the carton that are heat treated and safe to eat. Add those to your stand mixer fitted with a whisk and just mix to combine. Once they're combined, you can increase the speed to like a medium or a medium high, and you're just going to whip that for a few minutes. I added a ton of cocoa powder. You don't need to add this much if you don't want it that chocolatey, but because of all the cocoa powder I added, this was really thick and I actually thought that I might have ruined it, but trust me, it's going to work out. And begin mixing your butter in about a tablespoon at a time. I like to scrape my bowl down after each stick has been added just to make sure that everything is incorporating. As you can see, the mixture is quite thick even after I've added a stick of butter, but as you continue to whip in more and more butter, it will lighten up considerably. This is basically a mock Swiss meringue buttercream. We're using pasteurized egg whites so we didn't have to heat them up on the stove. It's a really great alternative to American buttercream because it's not as sweet, but it's also not quite as buttery as a traditional meringue-based frosting. Once all of your butter has been incorporated, you can scrape your bowl down again if you'd like, and then increase the speed on your mixer to a medium high and let that whip for several minutes. That's going to give us a really nice texture and lighten the flavor a lot. If you don't whip it long enough, it could taste a bit like butter. If that's the case, just pop it back in the stand mixer and whip it some more. For the chocolate rosemary cake, we're going to get started by boiling some water and adding fresh rosemary sprigs. Cover that and let that steep for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, go ahead and pull out your cake ingredients and sift your cocoa powder into a small heat-proof bowl. You can set that aside. Remove the rosemary from your hot water, measure out 12 fluid ounces of your hot rosemary water and add that to the cocoa powder. This is going to bloom the cocoa powder and help give us a really great chocolate flavor in our cake. Set that mixture aside and we're going to get started combining all of our dry ingredients. Sift together the all-purpose flour, cake flour, baking soda, and salt. Give that a good whisk and set that aside. Grab your warm chocolate mixture again, and we're going to add some canola oil, white vinegar, and vanilla. Give that a good whisk. Now it's time to combine our dry and our wet ingredients. I had to grab a larger bowl. I didn't realize how much batter this makes. Combine your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients together and whisk until combined and you don't see any more streaks of flour. Whisk it thoroughly. There will still be some lumps, however, but you don't want there to be too many lumps. It's a little bit of a fine line, I guess. You'll find the recipes used in this video in the description box below. Use an electric scale to divide your batter into 3 prepared 6-inch cake pans. It's about 12 ounces per cake pan. You can find links to the products that I've used in the description box below this video. Once my batter is divided, I like to add damp cake strips to my cake pans to make sure I have nice flat tops. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 35 minutes. Then let them cool in their cake pans for about 10 minutes before inverting onto a cooling rack to cool completely. Once they're cool, wrap them in 2 layers of cling film and you can chill them in the fridge overnight. What part of the cake baking process is your trouble spot? Tell me all about it in a comment down below. Now it's time to start putting our chocolate rosemary cake together. Go ahead and fill and stack your cakes like normal. If you'd like a tutorial about how I fill and stack my cakes, check the link up above on your screen and I'll put one down below in the description box as well. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you can see more of my videos. Cover the cake in a thin layer of the chocolate buttercream as a crumb coat. Once it's completely covered and you're happy with it, place your cake in the fridge to chill until the buttercream is firm. About 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, it really depends. Once our crumb coat is chilled and firm, it's time to apply the final coat of buttercream. I'm using my acrylic cake discs to get really nice straight sides and sharp corners. I have an entire step-by-step tutorial for this. I'll put a link up top on your screen and down below in the description box. Once your cake is completely covered and you're happy with how it looks, put it back in the fridge until the buttercream is nice and firm. At that point, you can transfer your cake onto a nice presentable cake board and leave that in the cake to chill and stay firm while we get started on our rosemary ganache. To make the ganache, you want to start by chopping up your chocolate to nice, even, small pieces. Place that in a small heat-proof bowl and set it aside. Then you can measure out your heavy cream, put that in a small saucepan and bring it to just shy of a boil. It should be nice, hot, and steaming. Add your rosemary and let it steep for about 10 minutes. Measure out your hot rosemary cream, pour over your chocolate, cover, and let it sit for just a minute or two until the chocolate starts to soften. Now you can stir your ganache until it starts to come together into a nice, smooth, creamy consistency. I like to add a tablespoon of corn syrup. This gives it a really nice shine even once the ganache has set up. Time to test our ganache on our cold cake. My first test strip on the back of the cake was a little thick, so I warmed it up, tried again. If your ganache is too thick, you can warm it up or add a little bit more cream. If it's too runny, you just need to give it more time to cool down and set up. Once your ganache is at the right temperature and consistency, work your way around the cake, alternating between how much chocolate you squeeze out so that your drips alternate between being long, short, medium. Gives it a little bit of variety. I only used about half of the ganache, so don't feel like you need to use all of it. Save it, store it in the fridge or the freezer, and use it for something else. Then fill in the top of the cake with ganache and use your small offset spatula to smooth it and work the chocolate around to a nice even layer. And then if you want, create a little spiral with a swirl in the center. Pop the cake back in the fridge for only 15 minutes so the chocolate sets up just a little bit, but not all the way. Let's top our chocolate rosemary cake with a wreath of fresh rosemary. I used a 6-inch cake pan to kind of plot out and shape my rosemary sprigs first, just so I knew that I had enough before I got started. Place the fresh rosemary on top of your cake right around the border. If you have any longer, thicker pieces of rosemary, I suggest snipping those in half. That way you can place them on at the correct angle because you won't be able to bend the rosemary. After you have all of your sprigs on the cake, go around with smaller pieces of fresh rosemary to cover up any thick stems or ends that might be sticking out and creating an ugly look. This just helps camouflage it and makes it look like one cohesive wreath. Now this adorable cake is getting an even more adorable cake topper. Camp Hollow was kind enough to send me this ceramic stag candle holder for free. It's so adorable and they have so many different fun cake toppers on their website. Check them out, I'll put a link down below. Just press this guy into the top of the cake. The ganache will kind of hold on to his hooves, hold him in place. All you got to do now is add the candle and you're good to go. Chocolate and rosemary is a really fun, unique flavor that you're gonna love. The rosemary has almost an evergreen or piney flavor to it, which works surprisingly well with the earthy flavors of the cocoa powder in the cake. Thanks for watching and happy baking!
I'm not the director of these videos, okay? Just so you know.